Welcome to OilfieldUniversity.com podcast.
Welcome to Oilfield University podcast. This is episode 7, Heroes and Mentors. I'm your host, Greg Williams. This week we'll cover how having heroes and mentors will lead you down the right career choice, and sometimes will open up the right door if you followed or listened to the right mentors. But first we'll go through the normal run of business. Copyright is material that is broadcast on the podcast or copyright of Oilfield University, Contechnics LLC, and myself. Any conflicts of interest with the show can be sent to content@oilfielduniversity.com, and we can share some dialogue about our differences of opinion, and maybe we can enlighten one another. Please visit our website at www.oilfielduniversity.com. There you'll find all of our social media at the top and the bottom of the homepage. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, OilPro, Twitter, Snapchat. So like us, add us, and share the love. So for this past couple of weeks in oil and gas history, we'll just cover a few here. December the 17th, 1884. Fighting oil field fires with cannons. Oil fires, like battles, are fought by artillery. This is the reporter's catchy phrase in a New England magazine article in 1884. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology publishes a thunderstorm in oil country, a first-hand account of the problem of lightning strikes in America's oil fields. MIT not only reports on the fiery results of lightning strike, but also the practice of using Civil War cannons to fight such conflagrations. December 17, 1903, natural gas fuels Wright Workshop. A homemade engine burning 50-octane gasoline for boat engines powers Wilbur and Orville Wright's historic 59-second flight into aviation history at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903. The brothers' mechanician, Charlie Taylor, fabricated a 150-pound, 13-horsepower engine in their Dayton, Ohio workshop. "We didn't make any drawings," Taylor later recalled. The Wright brothers used Ohio natural gas to power their workshop. A one-lunger, single-cylinder, 3-horsepower natural gas engine drove the overhead shaft and belts that turn a lathe, drill press, and rudimentary wind tunnel. December the 26th, 1905, patents will lead to modern metal oil drum. Henry Weirhan of Brooklyn, New York, receives 2 1905 patents that will lead to modern 55-gallon steel drum. He assigns these to his employer, Nellie Bly, of the Ironclad Manufacturing Company. "My invention has for its object to provide a metal barrel which shall be simple and strong in construction and effective and durable in operation." Weirhan notes in his patent for a flanged metal barrel with encircling hoops to better control when rolling. A second patent issued at the same time provides a means for readily detaching and securing a lid. So for our rig count from Baker Hughes and Oil and Gas Journal, the overall U.S. drilling rig count fell 9 units to an even 700 during the week ending December the 23rd, shortened by the Christmas holiday. The new total in the lowest since September the 10th, 1999, and down 1,140 year over year. After a sudden 17-unit jump during the week ending December the 18th, oil-directed rigs decreased 3 units to 538, down 961 year over year. Gas-directed rigs, which lost 17 units this week, dropped 6 units this week to settle at 162, down 178 year over year. All 9 units that dropped during the week were land-based, bringing that count to 675, down 1,095 year over year. Before sitting unchanged last week, they had fallen in 16 straight weeks. Rigs engaged in horizontal drilling lost 5 units to 554, down 796 year over year. Directional rigs declined 3 units to 60. Both offshore rigs and those drilling in inland waters were unchanged at 24 and 1 respectively. Canada's rig count suffered a precipitous drop of 36 units during the week to 126. Canada's rig count suffered a precipitous drop of 36 units during the week to 126. Down 130 year over year. Most of those rigs, 27, were oil-directed, bringing the total to 44. Gas-directed rigs lost 9 units to 82. For this week on our oil prices from Bloomberg. So last podcast where we discussed oil prices was December the 6th. So we'll cover the price reflection from this week back to December the 6th. So for crude oil, Brent is sitting at $37.89. This is a $5.11 drop from the previous figure of $43, which was broadcast on December the 6th. Crude oil, WTI, is sitting at $37.68. This is a $2.29 drop from the previous broadcast price of $39.97 on the week of December the 6th. Natural gas is sitting at $2.37. This is up 18 cents from the previous broadcast week of December the 6th. So for our oil field news, this is from Reuters against the gas prices and the oil prices. Oil prices steadied on Thursday, but we're still headed for a second year of steep declines after a race to the pump by Middle East crude producers and U.S. shale oil drillers created an unprecedented global glut that may take through 2016 to clear. Global oil benchmark Brent and U.S. crudes, West Texas Intermediate futures were on track, finished 2015 down more than 30% after another year that showed the helplessness of Saudi Arabia and others in the once powerful organization of the petroleum exporting countries, or OPEC, to support oil prices. The U.S. shale industry, meanwhile, surprised the world again with its ability to survive rock bottom crude prices, churning out more supply than thought, even as they sell off and the oil slashed by 2/3 the number of drilling rigs in the country from a year ago. The United States also took a historic move in repealing a 40-year ban on U.S. crude exports to countries outside Canada, acknowledging the industry's growth. This news is from World Oil. Congress reaches a fiscal deal that ends the U.S. oil export ban. Washington, D.C., this is from Bloomberg. Congressional leaders agreed on a fiscal plan that would avert a U.S. government shutdown and lift the 40-year-old ban on crude oil exports, House Speaker Paul Ryan told fellow Republicans during a closed-door meeting. Ryan said the House planned to vote Thursday on a $1.1 trillion government spending bill and a separate measure to revive a series of expired tax breaks, according to Representative John Klein of Minnesota. The measure would finance the government through September 2016. Ryan laid out a compelling case to support the deal, which includes lifting the oil export ban, said Representative Reed Ribble of Wisconsin. Republican Representative Ann Wagner of Missouri said the proposal to lift the crude oil export ban is huge and would have a much bigger effect than building the Keystone XL pipeline. The tax measure would extend credits for renewable energy sources that begin construction by the end of 2016 and a $1 per gallon biodiesel credit, measure sought by Democrats in exchange for lifting the oil export ban. This law was signed and went into effect December the 18th, and the first 600,000 barrels will be exported out of the Houston Ship Channel the first week of January. Atwood Oceanics delays delivery of ultra-deep-water drill ships. This is out of Houston. Atwood Oceanics said Friday that subsidiaries of the companies have agreed with Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering Company, DSME, to delay the company's requirement to take delivery of two new ultra-deepwater ships, the Atwood Admiral and the Atwood Archer, to September 30th, 2017 and June 30th, 2018, respectively. In consideration of the agreement, the company will make payments of $50 million for each drill ship on December 31st, 2015, and DSME will extend all remaining milestone payments, $93.9 million for the Admiral and $305 million for the Archer, until their respective delivery dates. The company retains the option to take delivery earlier of each vessel, subject to a 45-day notice period to DSME. Oil bankruptcies reach highest quarterly level since recession. This is in Houston and from Bloomberg. Bankruptcies among oil and gas companies have reached quarterly levels last seen in the Great Recession, according to Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. At least 9 U.S. oil and gas companies that accounted for more than $2 billion in debt have filed for bankruptcy in the fourth quarter. The bank said Wednesday's news it hits energy economic update for the final 3 months of the year. Lower oil prices have taken a significant financial toll on U.S. oil and gas producers, in part because of many have faced higher costs of production than international counterparts do, according to a note written by Navi Delois, a research assistant, and Martin Sturmer, a research economist. If bankruptcies continue at this rate, more may follow in 2016. Since peaking in October 2014, U.S. oil and gas employment has fallen by 70,000 jobs, the analyst wrote in the report. Also, Transocean, the majority of the offshore rig leader, has announced the early termination of Statoil leased Discover Americas and Shell leased Polar Pioneer. You can read these as well as other news on our energy feed at www.oilfielduniversity.com. Like I said before, we're broadcasting out of Houston, Texas. I'll take a moment and thank our listeners for tuning in. As always, we hope that this is educational for you as well as possibly learning a bit about what we do and what we're up against here in the industry. So here we go. Today we'll be talking about how heroes and mentors guide us through the industry. I'm sure many of you were just as I and dreamed of being someone when you were growing up, or dreamed of having a career such as an astronaut, doctor, firefighter, police officers, teachers, and so on. I'm sure that there are only a handful of people out there in the industry. These will be my second and third generation oil field ladies and guys that said, hey, I want to work in the oil field. I just don't think this was what you had imagined as a child. You know, from my side of it, I wanted to be a lawyer, you know? Yeah, I'm sure I can hear the comments now, but seriously, sharing what we wanted to be as children or young adults sheds light on how we may look, toward heroes and mentors later on in our future. On the hero side, my mom was my hero and still to this day. She managed to raise 3 kids on $12,000 a year. That in itself is a feat beyond belief. Now you could sit back and extrapolate the cost of living and wage increase, blah, 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 and could say, yes, that is possibly, or it may be considered possible these days, but simply living through that time in my life, I would say you'd have to be there and gone through it to understand where I'm coming from. We seldomly went to a hospital or a doctor, nor were we allowed to just grow up on our own like so many children are these days. We were taught Christianity growing up, as most southern U.S. children and families were. We were taught to live our life as good examples. I'm not saying that this was the right way. I'm saying this is how I was introduced into the world. So with saying that, yes, my mom was my hero, and I haven't found a person to live up to that standard, and most likely won't. Heroes set standards, and if you're lucky enough to have shared time with them and seen how they live their life, then they probably also raised your standards as well. Mentors, on the other hand, are people that lead and guide. They're the class just before you and have traveled that road before you have had a chance to set foot on it. If you're lucky, you've grabbed some good ones along the way. The knowledge that these mentors have is invaluable. Not a price tag in the world can be applied to the years of experience. When I first started, I'm sad to say I was self-made in the beginning working on land. I did have a friend that gave me a chance to really get started with what I called the big rigs back then, but he was not a mentor by any means. Teaching a person how to do something versus watching a person doing something is very different, as you can imagine. There's so many different operations that we do. From moving the rigs, spudding the well, running casing, cementing, running BOPs, testing BOPs, well control, communications with town or shore, proper record keeping, regulation involvement, training, accreditation, licensing, crewing, setting up schedules, pre-planning with the client. The list just goes on and on. Without a mentor, this pile will grow and grow until you feel defeated when you turn the lights off at the end of the day. Later on, I did find some mentors. They ranged from the first guy that showed me around the rigs to the first guy that showed me how to run pipe figures. When you're assigned a mentor starting out, remember, it may not be the guy that knows everything or everyone. He may be the person that's been around the longest, or they may be the person that trains the newest people on the crew. You won't really understand this until you have worked with them for a bit of time, and you can judge for yourself. Mentors, when we talk about mentors, there's things that affect the ability of a mentor, and some of it's ridicule or peer pressure. And it's something that's common for this industry just because it's been filled with people that enjoy what they do. And when you enjoy what you do, you have practical jokers around you 24 hours of the day. Some people thrive in this environment, and some people find it very offensive. One particular memory I have was from learning how to run some of the sophisticated equipment we have to run these days to be able to keep our jobs. At this time, I had the opportunity to work with a driller that had been in the industry for quite some time. And what I knew then paled in comparison to what he shared with me. But on that occasion, we were making a connection or adding some additional pipe to the string to be able to continue drilling operations. As I sat there nervous about, what I was about to do, the room became filled with a few people that had about 3 times, 4 times more experience in years than I did. As the driller brought the pumps down, I retrieved the stand of pipe and went to the rotary with it. I then heard the banter coming from this one particular person as they began to criticize me openly in the room with more than 6 or 7 people around listening to them. This wasn't just anyone speaking like this. This was a guy with years and years of experience. But he had a personal agenda about how he thought an operation should be run, and that was okay at that time in my career because we all have to listen to something of that sort as we're coming up. But to hear some of the things he was saying openly made me feel a bit inferior and uncomfortable. Just as I was turning around to say something, the driller spoke up. He stopped doing what he was doing, stood up, and told them to leave the room. This person said, "Finish making your connection." He said, "I will, when you and the others leave the room." This person left and took the other people with him and waited outside until the connection was made. I quietly left the rig floor just after that. At that moment, I had an awakening of courage in my career to never just think and feel inferior when I'm learning something new. That cripples your ability to ask questions because you'll be afraid to make mistakes around people of this nature because they will use that later against you when other supervisors are asking about your skills and abilities. Would I say that this driller was one of my mentors? Not necessarily, but he was a mentor to more people than I know, I'm sure. What he did for me was showed me a very valuable tool to keep my head on straight as I navigated through some of the rough water and learning about the new equipment machinery we all had to pick up and run with. What was even more ironic is that the person that was making the comments couldn't do what I was attempting to do, nor had he ever attempted it himself. That basically set a standard for me in the years following that I would always try to do something prior to making a comment about it, or at least understand what the process is before asking about a certain problem area, and also never comment on things that I do not have enough information about, especially if you considered it being an educated conversation. You would never have enough details to be able to hold that. Once a person knows that you don't have the skills or attempting to learn it, they'll draw a line in the sand where you're concerned and will not openly discuss issues with you because they'll feel as if you will not understand. This is how this industry has worked and will always work that way. I'm sure that this person had done this multiple times previously with many other people, and it never crossed his mind that it would affect the driller the way it did, but thankful enough for me that he said something prior to me, as I did not have enough time and position nor in the industry to share what I was going to share with him. It may have been a bit of a career changer for me. Well, as I was in certain positions for longer periods of time, the mentors came easy. As when I had a question, it was easier to ask people of higher caliber. They understood that if they did not tell me, that it would affect their overall performance of the operation. Have you ever had that favorite pair of jeans or shoes that you could just not give up or put in the trash? Maybe the most comfortable boiler suit or coveralls that was ever made. This is how mentors were. That's how they were to me. I never wanted to give them up, either it be switching crews or being promoted. They became more than mentors. They became friends and family. We knew almost everything about each other. Then you have the bad mentors. Another particular incident early in my career, I was working in the Gulf of Mexico at the time. I was working 14 and 14 and was leaving my home, driving to Sabine Pass for crew change. One of the people that worked with me rode to and from work, and we would change up every other trip to share the cost of transportation. As we were just leaving out of the city, actually just past the city limit sign, this was early in the morning hours, I noticed a large orange glow in the distance. The closer I got, I realized it was a fire that was burning. It wasn't an old fire that had just, started to get really hot. It happened to be a friend of my family's home that was on fire. So I pulled into the driveway and leaped from the car and told the guy that was with me to go to the payphone just down the street and call, the fire department. This was about 96, 97, 1997, something like that. Long story short, our family friend lost his life during that fire. And the fire marshal asked, for me to stay for questioning because I was the first one on the scene. Of course, I told him that I was headed to work and that I needed to be there for crew change. And he said I was going to be, held for questioning and I wasn't going to be able to leave. I called the rig and told the person I was working for at the time what the issue was. He was another one of these mentors that could make a bad impression almost immediately. He told me to stay at home. That if I could not make it to work, they didn't need me. Of course, I was shocked that someone of that caliber would say something like that to me, but I told him I would be there for crew change that afternoon, and he said if there was an additional helicopter, then that was fine, but if not, then they didn't need me. So I finished the questioning with the fire marshal and headed to Sabine Pass as quick as I could get there. I arrived to the heliport just in enough time to catch a cleanup flight leaving for that afternoon. Not sure if this was luck or someone looking out for me, but I made it to the rig. And this person never mentioned another word about it. That situation made me feel as if I couldn't be, if he couldn't trust me. When I told him something but I came to find out later, as I said prior, that the longer you're in a position, the easier it is for you to understand people in their demeanors. That was also his way of saying and dealing with multiple personnel problems in the past, and he just covered everyone with the same blanket, right or wrong. There's no difference now, but you learn to make sure you give each situation its correct due and not displace facts if they're not present. But during these times, we were facing some downturn, much like we are now, and people were being laid off every day. So I was happy to have kept my job during that time. As I come to a close here with episode 7, you want to look at your career, you want to reflect on some of what your mentors have said to you or shared with you, and do the right thing and pass it on, and pass on the good things. Because you may not realize it, but you may be someone's mentor that you're not aware of. People's always watching. They watch every move and they listen to your every word. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for listening. Happy New Year to all my ladies and gentlemen that are on the rig right now, working to tirelessly feed our obsession for energy. Thank you for our people in service and our military for always being on standby to secure the freedom of our nation. And from everyone here at Oilfield University, Happy New Year. And as always, listen and live loud.